1988 was a monumental year for the Last Son of Krypton. It was his 50th anniversary, and Superman wasn't just a character anymore. He was an American institution. But the Man of Steel was in a strange kind of place, as the Christopher Reeve film era had just sputtered out with a Superman for the Quest for Peace. And in the comic books, John Byrne had recently just rebooted the entire mythos with the Man of Steel comic books. Superman, he needed a win on the small screen. Enter Ruby Spears Productions, sandwiched between the campy fun of the Super Friends and the revolutionary Batman the Animated Series lies this hidden gem that a lot of comic fans have pretty much forgotten. It was high budget, it was written by comic book legends, and it featured the most comic book accurate Superman we have ever seen at that time on TV. Today we are looking at the 1988 Superman animated series, the show that tried to tap into the zeitgeist of the time around Superman's 50th anniversary, but ended up fighting for its life with the TV network and sadly disappeared after only 13 episodes.
It's really a travesty what's happened here.
In the late 1980s, Saturday mornings was a battlefield with the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC had loosened regulations leading to an explosion of toy-driven properties, but CBS wanted something a little more prestigious. Something that could honour the 50th anniversary milestone of Superman. The mandate was simple: bring Superman into the modern era. No more Wonder Twins, no more campy fun. This was to be a pure Superman show. So they passed Hanna-Barbera, who had handled the DC properties for decades, and instead they went with Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. These were men who were famous for actually creating Scooby-Doo for Hanna-Barbera and then leaving to create their own studio. CBS was hoping they could create a slightly more grounded, action-oriented style of cartoon for Superman. To ensure the show felt like the comics, Ruby Spears did something pretty revolutionary for the time. They hired an actual comic book creator. They brought in Marv Wolfman, the legendary writer of the new Teen Titans and Crisis on Infinite Earths, as the head story editor. If you wanted the DC universe to feel cohesive, Wolfman was the man.
Wow, I knew you were the right guy for the job.
But the secret sauce was the visual design. The show's characters' designs were handled by the legendary Gil Kane. Now, if the characters looked like they stepped right off the Silver Age comic book covers, it's because a Hall of Fame artist was drawing the model sheets. And the voice cast was equally as stellar. Bo Weaver took on the mantle of Clark Kent and Superman. Weaver's performance is often overlooked, but he nailed the distinction between the two identities of giving Clark a more gentler, more human tone, while Superman carrying a real commanding, heroic weight. We also get Jenny McSwain as Lois Lane, portraying her not as a damsel in distress, but a hard-nosed investigative reporter we all know and love.
She's the best.
This series is a fascinating time capsule because it's the only animated adaptation of the post-crisis John Byrne era. In the show, Lex Luthor isn't just a mad scientist in a purple jumpsuit. He is a corporate billionaire shark of Metropolis. This was a radical departure for TV audiences used to a Super Friends version of Lex. Here, Lex was untouchable, hiding behind lawyers and R&D departments. The show was also leaned heavily into the new Kryptonian law. Kryptonians weren't a world of shiny headbands. It was a cold, clinical, high-tech society. But perhaps the most charming addition was the Superman family album. Every episode ended with a 4-minute segment chronicling Clark's childhood in Smallville. From his first time floating in his crib to his first day at school, these segments grounded the godlike alien. They showed us why he was a hero, not because of his powers, but because of John and Martha Kent. Production-wise, Ruby Spears pulled out all the stops on this one. They outsourced the animation to Toei Animation and Daiwan Animation. If those names sound familiar, it's because Toei was the studio behind Dragon Ball and Transformers. The budget was significantly higher than your average Saturday morning fare. The movement was more fluid, the shadows were dramatic, and the scale of the fights were massive. They even secured the rights to the John Williams Superman theme from the movies, rearranged it for TV by Ron Jones. When that horn section kicks in, you know exactly who is coming to save the day.
Superman!
Now, for the deep cut fans out there, this show was packed with oddities, like Wonder Woman's guest spot. The show featured the first ever animated appearance of the post-crisis Wonder Woman in an episode, Siren's Fate. The no punch rule, despite being a action show, CBS had strict standards and practices. Superman was rarely allowed to punch people. Instead, he spent most of his time catching falling buildings or melting weapons with his heat vision. We also get the villain Cybron. Now, if he kind of feels familiar, well, originally the producers wanted to use Brainiac, but because DC was still trying to figure out its new comic book origins after the crisis, the show had to create a Brainiac light character instead. We also get the usual animation errors that were common for that time across cartoons. Like in some episodes you will see the Superman ass shield occasionally flip, change color, or just completely disappear.
You noticed that too?
So this question gets asked a lot. If the show was this good, why did it last 13 episodes? Well, it wasn't for lack of quality, that's for sure. It unfortunately was a victim of the syndication wars. At the time, networks were moving away from high-budget Saturday morning cartoons in favour of cheaper, daily syndicated blocks. Additionally, the show was expensive, and CBS wasn't seeing the mass toy sales that they expected, mostly because there wasn't actually a dedicated toy line tied directly to the show's aesthetic. It also struggled in the ratings as well. According to Wolfman, the person in charge at CBS's children's programming had a thinly veiled disdain for superhero shows and put the show on early in the morning, where it struggled to meet its target demographic of 9 to 13-year-olds. And by the time the 1989 season rolled around, the Man of Steel was pulled from the lineup to make room for more marketable properties.
It's all about the goddamn money with you, ain't it?
Now, when it came to home media releases, for years the Ruby Spears Superman was really a lost show, and from the late 80s through to the 90s there were really no VHS releases to be found at all. But it took until 2009 for the series to get a proper release. It coincided with the 70th anniversary of Superman, and Warner Brothers released the Superman, the 1988 animated series, on a 2-disc DVD set. This set includes all 13 of the episodes with the family album segments. But unfortunately, it's lacking any sort of making of docu-series, which actually would have been really good to have on this.
A missed opportunity, if you ask me.
Now, as of 2026, the show is available in high definition on digital platforms like Amazon, Vudu, and Max, while a 4K or Blu-ray physical release hasn't hit the shelves yet. And as I always say, look, anything is possible down the track, but as of this video, there ain't no plans to do so.
Well, that is disappointing.
Look, I can say I never saw this or even knew this cartoon existed up until about 10 years ago or so when I saw the DVD set for sale. And for me, I've been after a copy of it for almost that long, and I've finally managed to pick up a copy just recently. So I was super excited to sit down and see what this cartoon had to offer. And it was just as good as I hoped it would be. Yes, it was such a quality Superman cartoon that it's a shame that the network didn't back it, as I think this could have had a great run on TV, that's for sure. But alas, we have only got 13 episodes, and I mean, the stories are pretty standard fare for cartoons of that late 80s, but the animation is what I love about it. You can really tell it's not cheaply done. There's some real care taken and effort really put into this. As Superman, he just looks great, and the episodes are a joy to watch. I am so glad to finally get this really forgotten gem in the collection. Yes. And I would definitely give this a solid 9 out of 10 for me. I totally recommend it for any comic book fan out there to get a copy of this into your collection for sure, as it's a must-have. The 1988 Ruby Spears Superman is more than just a footnote. It was a bridge between the old school camp of the 70s and the sophisticated storytelling of the 90s animated series. It treated Superman with reverence, focused on his humanity, and gave us a Lex Luthor we could actually love to hate. It was a show that understood that while Superman, he can move planets, it's the boy from Kansas that makes him the hero. Look, if you haven't seen it, honestly, go buy the DVD set or go find the 13 episodes online. It's a shame we only get 13 episodes, but it's definitely one that is really worth watching.
This I've got to see.
Next week on the show, we are going to look at the new Aztec Batman movie that came out in 2025 on Blu-ray, so make sure you come back and check that one out. Thanks for watching.